You ever show up somewhere and realize it was never meant for you? I'm Amanda Green. I'm 34 years old, and last night I sat through the most humiliating dinner of my adult life. But if I'm honest, the worst part wasn't the food or the speeches or even the absence of my name in the toast. It was the feeling that my presence made the room uncomfortable. Like I was the mistake someone forgot to leave off the guest list. The dinner was supposed to be a casual family celebration. That's what my mom texted me. Just dinner, nothing fancy. Ryan wants us all together. Ryan is my younger half-brother. He just bought a little fixer-upper with his fiancée, and apparently that was the occasion. I just wrapped a brutal double shift at the restaurant I manage, drove 45 minutes out of Portland in the rain, and still made it on time. I even brought a bottle of red from a local vineyard because, despite everything, I was trying to show up. But when I walked in, something immediately felt off. The house was decked out with candles and a full catered spread. String lights, printed menus, assigned seating. The kind of thing you plan weeks in advance, not something you throw together last minute like Mom claimed. And then I saw it. The long dining table with 12 name cards. I scanned quickly. Ryan, Madison, his fiancée. Chuck, my stepdad. Mom. Every cousin, aunt, even a guy named Travis I didn't recognize. But not me. No Amanda. Not even a blank card. I just stood there for a moment, holding the wine bottle like a gift nobody asked for. My mom spotted me and called out cheerfully, "Amanda, you made it." She walked over and hugged me like everything was normal. "Sorry, did you say there was a seat for me?" I asked quietly. "Oh, well, we only had a dozen spots, and Madison's cousin dropped in last minute. But there's room at the kitchen counter," she said, smiling like she'd solved a seating puzzle. "You don't mind, right? It's more relaxed over there anyway." The counter. I was being offered a bar stool next to the trash can. I didn't say anything, just nodded and walked over. My heels clicked against the tile louder than they should have. My face felt hot, but I kept it together. I'd been here before, emotionally, just not quite this, literally. I sipped wine in silence while they toasted Ryan's new house, the first homeowner in the next generation. My mom clinked glasses and said, "Your father would be proud," referring to Chuck, the man who always made me feel like an outsider in my own childhood home. My biological dad died when I was 10. After that, it was like I slowly disappeared. Mom married Chuck a year later, and then Ryan came along. My room, my stuff, even my name started to feel like it didn't belong. But I stayed quiet. I worked hard. Got into culinary school on scholarship. Moved out young. Built my life from scratch. I thought that meant something. But last night reminded me. Some people don't remember what you survived. They only care about who fits the picture they're trying to paint. As dessert rolled out, Chuck stood up and gave a little speech. He looked right at Ryan and said, "I always knew you'd make something of yourself. You're the kind of man this family needs." The kind of man this family needs. I'm not a man. So, I guess I was never needed. My hands were clenched under the table. I remember feeling my fingernails dig into my palm just to stop myself from shaking. I wanted to leave. I really did. But then Ryan started telling a story about how he got the house. A great deal from someone he knew through work. And that's when it hit me. Ryan had gotten this house through a connection I introduced him to last year. A contractor who used to work with one of our vendors. I vouched for Ryan. I made that call. And now I was sitting at the counter like a stranger. I don't know what came over me, but I stood up. Slowly, the chair scraped back loudly enough to make the whole room pause. Every face turned toward me. Wine glasses midair, forks frozen. "Sorry to interrupt," I said, my voice calmer than I felt. "But I think there's something you all forgot to toast." And right then, I reached into my purse and pulled out the envelope I'd been holding onto for months. Something none of them knew existed. What was in that envelope? Let's just say, this night wasn't going to end the way they expected. You could hear the hum of the fridge and not much else. Everyone stared at the envelope in my hand like it was about to explode. I wasn't planning to open it, not tonight. But something in me snapped the moment Chuck said Ryan was the man this family needed. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just held it up and said, "This is the acceptance letter Grandma never got to read." There was a flicker in my mom's face. A twitch, like she knew exactly what I meant. "I got into the Culinary Institute in New York at 19, I said. Full ride. I worked 2 jobs, graduated valedictorian, and mailed the acceptance letter home, thinking maybe someone would be proud of me. I turned to my mother. "You never mentioned it, not once." My mom looked stunned for a second, but then she smiled. This fake, tight-lipped thing she always used when things got uncomfortable. "Amanda, that was years ago. Why bring it up now?" "Because I found out last week," I said, holding the envelope out, "that the letter never made it to Grandma. It was in a box in the garage, unopened." I paused. Right next to a stack of cards I made for her every birthday she spent in that nursing home. Now the silence felt like pressure in my ears. A few relatives shifted in their seats. Ryan looked down at his plate. Chuck scoffed. "Is this what you came here for? To stir up the past?" "No," I said, locking eyes with him. "I came here because I was invited to dinner. I didn't realize I was being invited to disappear. Again." And then it all came back in a wave. I was 14 when Chuck moved in. The first thing he did was take my dad's things off the walls. Said they made the house feel heavy. My room got reassigned to storage so Ryan could have the bigger one. And when I asked why, my mom said, "Ryan's going to need space for his future." Like I didn't have one. I slept in a box room for the next 4 years. Chuck called it the Nook, like I was a character in some off-brand children's book. The only privacy I had was when I studied at the public library until closing. But I still showed up. I still made birthday calls. I sent money to help when Chuck was laid off. And when Ryan said he wanted to break into real estate, I gave him my industry contact, a man who trusted me because I never screwed him over. The same man who told me over coffee last week. Funny thing. Ryan acted like you weren't even in the picture. Said he did it all himself. That's when I knew. I was never part of the plan. I looked back at my mom across the table. I used to think I just needed to be more patient, work harder, be useful enough to matter. But I realize now, I was never being overlooked. I was being erased. Chuck slammed his glass on the table. "You done playing the victim?" And that's when the twist came. From the back of the room, someone stood up. It was Grandma. Not on FaceTime. Not in a frame, but in person. Standing behind the dessert table in her old blue cardigan and pearls. I'd picked her up 3 hours earlier from the nursing home. Signed the discharge papers myself. No one noticed because she was in the guest room when everyone arrived, taking a nap while I set this entire scene up. Gasps filled the room. My mom looked like she'd seen a ghost. "Hi, darling," Grandma said to me, walking over slowly with her cane. She took my hand. "I told you, if you ever needed me to see something for myself, just say the word." Chuck's face turned pale. Grandma turned to the crowd. "I may be 81, but my memory is sharp, and I remember which child used to come see me every Sunday, and which one told the nurse I was too far gone to notice." And then she pulled a small manila envelope from her purse. "I brought my will. I swear you could hear someone drop a fork. I think it's time I told the family what's in it." I thought after that dinner fiasco, I'd seen the worst of it. I was wrong. 3 weeks later, I finally got the keys to my new place, a modest condo in Portland. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Hardwood floors, tiny balcony, even a space for my herb garden. It felt like the first thing I'd truly earned that no one could take away. I wanted to mark the moment. So I planned a small gathering. Just family and a few close friends. Nothing flashy. Charcuterie board, a homemade playlist, and maybe a toast or two. I called Mom and said I wanted it to be at the family cabin, the one my grandparents built before I was born, now mostly unused. She sounded genuinely touched. Oh, honey, of course. That sounds wonderful. Let me handle the details. You just relax and focus on work. I should have known better, but I wired her $10,000 anyway. It was everything I'd saved the past year. I told myself it was okay. That maybe this time, maybe just this once, they'd show up for me. 2 days before the event, I still hadn't received a guest list or a schedule. I called. No answer. I texted. Nothing. Then on Friday, I opened Instagram, and my heart stopped. There she was, Ryan's fiancée, Madison, posting story after story from the cabin. Rose gold balloons, flower arrangements, caterers setting up in the background. Caption: engaged AF, so ready to celebrate with everyone tomorrow. Tomorrow? I blinked. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe the date was wrong. But no. In the next clip, Mom appeared, laughing while holding a tray of custom cookies shaped like engagement rings. We're so proud of our future daughter-in-law. My face went cold. My hands went numb. I sat there, alone in my apartment, watching the party I paid for unfold in real time, a party no one told me about, much less invited me to. At first, I couldn't even cry. I just sat there, frozen, wine glass still in my hand from dinner, trying to process what I was seeing. Then I called my mom. She picked up on the third ring. Amanda, hi, sweetie. Everything okay? You tell me, I said. My voice sounded unfamiliar, like it belonged to someone else. Where's my party? She sighed. That sigh. The one that always meant I was overreacting. I was going to call you tonight, I promise, but everything's been so hectic with the engagement. You used my 10 grand to throw Ryan's engagement party? I asked, each word sharp and slow. Honey, it just made more sense. His engagement is a huge moment and you're already settled. You have your own place, a good job. You don't need the attention. I stared at the wall like it had just slapped me. So I don't get a celebration because I'm functional? It's not like that. No, Mom, it's exactly like that. She tried to soothe me, said I could still come to the party, that there's plenty of food, and Madison won't mind. Like I was some distant relative crashing a wedding. I hung up. I didn't text. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Instead, I pulled out my laptop and opened the folder I'd been ignoring for months, the one labeled Grandpa's Letters. Before he passed, Grandpa and I used to write to each other. He'd send me handwritten letters every month, and I kept every single one. After he died, I scanned them all. I hadn't had the strength to read them since. Until that night. In one of the letters, dated 2 years before he passed, he wrote, "If you ever feel like you're alone in that house again, know this. The cabin is yours. We left it in your name. It's in the trust. The others don't know yet, and maybe it's better that way. For now." I reread that sentence 10 times. I don't think I even blinked. The cabin, the place where they were throwing his engagement party, was mine. They were celebrating Ryan's future in a house my grandfather left to me, behind their backs. And they had no idea. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was sad. That part had burned out. What I felt now was pure, focused fire. For 34 years, I let them set the table, pick the seats, and tell me where I belonged. But the truth was, that cabin, that land, that memory-soaked wood and stone they'd hijacked for Pinterest-perfect lies, it belonged to me. I spent the next morning calling a lawyer I knew from the restaurant group. Told her everything. Sent the scanned letter from Grandpa, the trust documents she'd helped notarize years ago, and the recent photos Madison had so graciously posted. "You realize?" she said calmly. "They've just publicly thrown an event on private property they don't own?" "Yes," I said. "And I want to walk in there with something better than a bottle of wine this time." That afternoon, I pulled up to the cabin's long gravel driveway. There were cars lining both sides, floral signs, a chalkboard that read, "The future Mr. and Mrs. Clark" in curly script. I parked right at the top, in the space marked "Reserved for Family." People were already gathering by the porch with champagne. Laughter, tiny bites, polite conversation. No one noticed me at first, but when I stepped onto the porch and someone called my name, heads turned. "Amanda?" my cousin Lisa asked, blinking. "What are you doing here?" I smiled. "Oh, I live here." Confused chuckles. Someone handed me a mimosa. I didn't take it. Inside, the cabin looked like a catalog chute. My grandmother's handmade quilts had been folded neatly on a bench labeled Rustic Cozy Zone. Even Grandpa's old fishing rod was hanging on a decorative rack next to a sign that said, "Adventure awaits." And there, in front of the fireplace, stood my mother, Ryan, Madison, and Chuck. All dressed up. All smiling for a photographer. I waited until the flash went off. Then I stepped into the shot. Click. Everyone turned. Madison blinked. "Oh, hey, we didn't know you were coming." I ignored her. I looked straight at my mother. "Nice party. How much of it did my 10 grand cover?" The photographer froze. Ryan's smile faltered. "Amanda, let's not do this here." I cut him off. "Oh, we're definitely doing it here." I pulled out the manila envelope. This one was thicker. I handed it to Chuck. He opened it slowly, scanned the top sheet. His jaw locked. "This is a cease and desist," he muttered. "That's right," I said. "You're trespassing on private property. The legal owner has not authorized this event." Chuck scoffed. "You can't be serious." "She's completely serious," said a calm voice behind me. My lawyer, dressed in flats and jeans, stepped into view. She held a rolled-up copy of the property trust. "I'm Alexandra Holt, legal counsel for Ms. Amanda Green. You're hosting an unauthorized commercial event on private land. We advise all non-family guests to vacate the premises immediately or risk legal action." Gasps. Whispers. Someone dropped a champagne glass. My mother's face was paper white. "You wouldn't," she said, voice trembling. "I already did," I said. "And just so we're clear, this isn't just about the cabin." I turned to Ryan. "You used my connections, my resources, and when I asked for one small thing, one night for myself, you took that too." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. "And Madison," I said, meeting her eyes, "your flower arrangements are lovely. They'll look great in the parking lot where this party is headed." She flushed crimson. The lawyer stepped forward again. "You have 30 minutes to vacate. Anything left behind will be removed or donated." People started gathering their things. My cousins avoided eye contact. Someone turned off the music. And then, the twist. Just as I was about to walk out to the deck, my mother grabbed my arm. "You think you're better than us now?" she hissed. "Because of a few pieces of paper and some fancy title?" I looked her dead in the eyes. "No," I said. "I'm not better. I'm just not invisible anymore." She stared at me. And then, quietly, she said something I didn't expect. "Your grandfather only left you the cabin." I raised an eyebrow. "That's all I need." But she shook her head. "No, Amanda, that's not all. He left you the whole property. The cabin, the land, the fishing shed, the lake access. All of it." My heart skipped. "What?" Her lips were tight. "You were always his favorite. He never forgave me. I just thought, if we acted fast enough, you wouldn't find out." I stepped back. She knew. The whole time. And she still threw Ryan's party here. It all came to a head on Monday morning, less than 48 hours after I legally evicted my entire family from the cabin my grandfather left to me. The fallout began. Not in private, but in the ugliest, most public way possible. Chuck tried to fight back. He marched into the county assessor's office, claiming the trust was fraudulent and that I had manipulated an old man on his deathbed. But the documents were airtight. Grandpa had planned for this long before his health declined. My lawyer presented years of dated correspondence, notarized paperwork, and a video Grandpa recorded 2 months before passing, stating clearly and lucidly, Amanda is the only one who ever treated this land with respect. She gets it, not just the property, the purpose. That video broke them. Within days, Chuck's name was flagged in another investigation. Apparently, he'd been quietly using the family business as collateral for private loans he couldn't repay. My mother's name was all over those documents, too. She had co-signed 3 of them without telling anyone. Not even Ryan. By Thursday, the business they'd both run for over a decade, a small-town real estate office in Eugene, was shuttered. Clients pulled out. Lawsuits came in. And Ryan? He finally called me. At first, I didn't answer, but on the second call, I picked up. I didn't know, he said. About the trust, about the money, about any of it. Maybe you didn't, I replied. But you knew enough to let Mom use my savings for your party. You knew enough to let me stand in the kitchen while you sat at the head of the table. There was a long pause. I lost everything, he said quietly. Madison left. Said she can't marry into this mess. I let that hang there. I didn't try to make him feel better, because sometimes the lesson isn't kind. Sometimes it needs to hurt. Maybe it's time, I said, for you to build something on your own. And I hung up. It's been 6 months. The cabin is mine, legally, spiritually, wholly. I restored the porch swing Grandpa built in '82 and had the quilts Grandma made cleaned and stitched. On Sundays, I cook big family-style meals. Sometimes it's just me. Sometimes a few friends. Sometimes my cousin Lisa, who reached out after everything and apologized for never stepping in. But every Sunday, without fail, I set an extra plate. Not for my mother, not for Chuck, not even for Ryan. But for the version of myself that used to stand in doorways waiting to be seen. The girl who asked for space. Who waited for someone to say, "You belong here." She doesn't have to ask anymore. And the most ironic part? Turns out that same lawyer, the one who helped me take the cabin back, she used to work with Chuck's firm. She'd left 5 years ago after he told her she was too ambitious for small-town real estate. She remembered that, and made sure he never forgot it. I guess if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Sometimes the people who tell you to be grateful are the ones most afraid of what you'll become if you stop apologizing. So don't shrink to fit their story. Build your own. If this hit close to home, maybe it's time you spoke up too. Feel free to share your story in the comments. You never know who might need to hear it. And if this resonated with you even a little, go ahead and subscribe. I've got more to tell, and something tells me you do too. Thanks for listening.